On the podcast today, 10-time world champion cliff diver Gary Hunt. Welcome to the Art of Excellence. In the words of Aristotle, excellence is never an accident. It is always the result of high intention, sincere effort, and intelligent execution. I am your host, Glenn Zweig. Join me now as I dive into the lives and careers of world-class entrepreneurs, athletes, entertainers, scientists, thought leaders, and explorers to uncover the ingredients to their extraordinary accomplishments. My guest today is Gary Hunt. Gary is a professional cliff diver. He is a 10-time Red Bull World Series champion with 43 overall victories and counting. He is widely considered to be the greatest cliff diver in the history of the sport. Gary, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So here's where I thought we could start. I notice you don't do a lot of interviews.
Hmm.
So, of course, thank you for doing this one. I know it took a while of back and forth for a few months to get set up. You're a busy guy. Also notice you don't have a big social media presence. You're not a big self-promoter, it seems, like a lot of other top athletes. You're the best in the world at this sport. So I was just curious, if you could share like what's behind that.
Yeah, I mean, it has become part of the job now, to be an athlete and to promote yourself. And I played along for a while and did enjoy making content. Never, never filmed myself, selfies and stuff like that. But yeah, I did try to promote myself and just put cool videos and stuff out there. But yeah, as the years went on, I don't know. I just felt like it was taking up quite a lot of my time. Trivial things like deciding what a post should be called, like a title, would take me too long, and
Yeah.
yeah, just kind of lost interest and just preferred just having fun doing what I want to do. I've had some sponsors on and off throughout my career, but I was almost more comfortable when I didn't have a sponsor and I was just doing things for myself.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that as well, actually, because I imagine the prize winnings, even at your level, are somewhat modest
Mm,
in cliff dive. I know Red Bulls come in;
yeah.
they've done a lot of sponsorships, but it's not the equivalent of highly recognized sports. So you certainly can make a lot more money off endorsements and sponsorships, and just not something you really wanted to do.
Yeah, it was just never offered to me. And I did ask questions like, it's kind of strange why that was never offered to me, being the best for almost a decade. And I understood the answer that I got was that I'm just not somebody that it's easy to stick a brand on. Like I'm not somebody that's going to sell products and things like that. I just don't really enjoy. I don't feel comfortable pushing products on other people, or even just slipping product placements in my videos. I always felt a bit uncomfortable with that, and so I just, yeah, I accepted that, and yeah, don't think about it too much. I just think about what I'm doing, what I like to do, and the rest is doesn't make too much of a difference to me. I'm
Yeah.
lucky to have been on the podium for the last 10, 15 years, and it's been enough to save some money. But yeah, it's not a football salary.
Right.
Not even close.
Right. So just to rewind the clock a little bit, before cliff diving, you were a competitive pool diver at quote unquote, regulation heights, Olympic kinds of heights, 10-meter boards, that sort of thing. And before the diving, you were a swimmer. So to go all the way back to that, what drew you to swimming to begin with versus other kinds of sports as a youth? And then why the switch?
Yeah, it was thanks to my parents. They really wanted me to find something that I liked. With me and my sisters, we all did we did dance classes for a couple of years. We did swimming, we did gymnastics, And yeah, swimming was something was my dad's choice. He wanted us to learn to swim very early and then be part of a swimming club. And my sisters were very good swimmers. Me, not so much. I was kind of a skinny kid, didn't have much power, and was always getting told off by the coach for chatting with my friends at the end of the lane. And then I saw the divers in the other pool, and that's it looked like that was what they were doing. They would jump off, and then they would be joking around on the poolside until they did the next dive. So it looked like a lot more fun to me. So at the age of 9, I started diving and never looked back.
But all individual sports, gymnastics and swimming and
Mhm.
diving, you weren't drawn to any of the team sports.
Yeah, I mean, I did love playing football. I was very happy to be in goal. I don't know whether that was because there was an element of diving in that as well, but I did love it. I just had to make a choice. The diving competitions were taking up almost all my weekends, so I wasn't there enough to be part of the football team.
So when you were doing the 10-meter diving and you were doing competitions, I assume you were pretty good at it. Was the goal at the time to get to the Olympics?
Not really, because I didn't consider myself world class at any point. Like when I was a junior, I was learning very fast. I got kind of thrown into the not I wasn't in the beginners lesson because I had swimming on the other days. And so the coach let me into like the level 3. So I was thrown in at the deep end, and I learned really quickly. So I was winning medals in the small junior competitions, but when it came to nationals, I was always around third place, and first and second would qualify for the junior Europeans and junior worlds, and I was very often the reserve. So I didn't get to go away to any of these competitions, but I wanted to. I wanted my goal was to represent my country, and yeah, I kept going until I got into the senior competitions, and then around 19, 20 years old, I qualified for my first international, and so that was a big step forward, and I loved it, and so that pushed me to keep going. But I qualified for the Europeans and even the Commonwealth Games, but the World Championships and the Olympic Games was always a really tough. I mean, even in seniors, I managed to get around third place, fourth place at the nationals, but never was in the top two. So, I mean, yeah, I had the idea of the Olympics in mind, and I think maybe 2008 was my best shot at it, but I never really believed that it could happen. So I kind of put that behind me, and then ended up in high diving, and was hoping that the high diving eventually would become an Olympic sport, but it hasn't
It
yet.
hasn't yet, but was that part of the allure though of the cliff diving? I assume was more of a chance to get from that third, fourth place to get to first place. Was it more just there was something about the riskiness of it, the newness of it that just drew you to it?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a door opening to many more possibilities. I was always a diver that loved learning new dives, and from as a kid, I had a list of all the dives possible and their degree of difficulties. And every time I would learn a new dive, I would mark it off and be proud to have learned a new dive. And that led me to learn some crazy dives that nobody else would try. And so that kind of gave me a good basis, a good framework to build off for high diving. So I didn't think about becoming a high diver when I was young. I just loved diving. I think I was 22 when I got an offer to do a diving show where there would be a ladder going up to around 20 meters, and I didn't expect it, but I said yes straight away. I had a month off training.
Now, just to clarify, this was at an amusement park, right?
Yeah,
So it was that part of a bigger show you were doing, or are you just diving over and over and over again?
yeah. It was a pirate show in a theme park in Italy, and it was yeah, it was fun for a month. Getting paid for diving, which had never been a thing before. I don't think I'd ever earned money from diving. So that was just a new experience, and for me, it was just an opportunity to dive higher than 10 meters. And I'd been out in Southampton to try jumping off a bridge with a couple of friends, but it was only about 12, 13 meters, and my friend hit the bottom on his knee and cut it, and so that stopped us from finding cliff diving around Southampton area. But yeah, I got the chance to go higher than 10 meter for the first time, and loved it, and I realized that that was kind of the sport that was suited for me.
Yeah. And I think it was at one of these amusement park gigs where you met a juggler and then he taught you his craft, and that's where you picked up juggling, which you still do to this day, I understand.
Yeah, yeah, it was just I was just amazed at how easy it looked, and that just gave me a challenge. I said, okay, yeah, I'm gonna buy a set of 5 balls and try and learn how to juggle. And yeah, I kind of felt like there was a good connection between concentrating on juggling, seeing how fast the balls were falling and catching them, and then my craft of high diving. I felt like there was a good connection between the two. We were often waiting around doing nothing, waiting for the competition, and it would be very stressful. You'd think about dives, you'd think about the risk, and it'd be difficult to take your mind off the competition. And I found like juggling was a perfect kind of meditation for me. I was still like concentrating. It was still like keeping my body and my brain active, but I was completely not focused on the competition or any of the nerves.
Hmm. And that's still a pre-dive ritual you do to this day?
I mean, it's not something that I take with me and have to do or anything like that. It's if there's juggling balls around and I've got nothing else to do, then I'll do it. And I still have goals to juggle 7 balls. I take them with me at diving competitions just because I have free time. I have more free time often when I'm going to a diving competition or a
Mhm.
training camp than I do when I'm at home. So I take them with me just because every time I go away to a competition, I improve a little bit. It's difficult to find time for juggling when I'm at home because there's the dishes to be washed or a shelf to be put up and things like that. So I like going away for a week for a competition or a training camp because I can work on things like that.
Yeah,
At
I
the
think
moment, it's a Rubik's cube that I'm trying to learn the CFOP method of a Rubik's cube, and that's my challenge at the moment.
a Rubik's Cube. Interesting. So, for those that don't know this sport of cliff diving, just to put it in perspective, with traditional dive competitions, we talked about a 10-meter platform that you used to do. 10 meters is about 33 feet. For those
Mm,
here, we don't like to live off international measuring
yeah,
conventions. So for those in the U.S. listing, 33 feet. Cliff diving for the men, it's 27 meters or about 88 feet.
yeah.
So, Gary, that is like jumping off an 8-story building. And so the first time you're standing on the edge of a platform 8 stories up in the air looking over, that didn't terrify you?
Well, the thing is, I worked my way up. Like I never some of the new guys now they come and see a competition, and for the first time they look over 27 meters, and it is really really frightening. But I worked my way up slowly. I got really confident at 10 meters, and then I learned to dive in diving show for 18 meters. Then the next year it was 20 meters. And it took me like 3 or 4 years to make the transition from 10 meter to 27. So just each new height would be like a step up and another step where my heart would be beating faster and I would be scared. But like there was no like I didn't just go have a look at 27 meters with no kind of stepping stone before that. It took me many years of perfecting my art to get the confidence to jump off there.
I read somewhere that you actually have a fear of heights. Not necessarily anymore over the water, but you have a fear of heights otherwise. Is that true?
Yeah, kind of. Like I didn't have before I started high diving, or I don't remember having it because I'm constantly jumping off cliffs and platforms and like I'm used to seeing the height and imagining myself jumping off and doing a triple somersault or a quad. And so that happens now if I'm on a balcony that's anywhere from 10 meters to 30 to 40 meters. I can't help but like imagine what it would be like to jump off, or like what my body is capable of doing from that height. And so when there's not water underneath, it's really scary. Like I don't like being anywhere near a balcony when there's concrete underneath, because I kind of get those jitters of like, yeah, I want to jump.
Hmm. Could you skydive? Have you done that?
No, no, it's I did a bungee jump once, and just my initial thought was, well, it's not as good as high diving, because you're attached and you take part in the start, but then it's not really you doing the work. So I just like the freedom of high diving, and that gives me the kick. And
Hmm.
I'd be scared as well. Like it's not like I'm not an adrenaline junkie. I get my dose of adrenaline from the sport I do, and that is enough. Like I'm quite happy being at home, playing the piano, going out gardening a little bit, and then I get 10 or 12 times a year I get to go away and then do something really extreme.
Is the so the kick is doing this extreme risky endeavor?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think I would enjoy it as much if it wasn't risky. And it's just it's a pleasure knowing that you've put in so much work to learn how your body can move, how your body can how powerful you are, how concentrated you need to be on form and to perform the best under pressure, and to calm yourself in those conditions that can be really scary.
Hmm. I think you reach speeds jumping off 9 stories upwards of 50 miles per hour, even a little bit north of that. So it's way too fast to land head first. So you have to land feet first. But even so, at those speeds, it's got to be pretty painful if you don't land it perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, the first couple of years when you do it, I would say almost every impact is painful until you get your body used to it. You're strong enough. Took me a good 5 years to realize what muscles I needed to work on in the off season to be prepared. I was sore after every competition. I had a sore back, sore shoulders. But yeah, after a while, I prepared myself more and more in the off season and made less and less mistakes. So now it doesn't always hurt, but it's almost like 50-50. And I'm
Hmm.
in the tail end of my career now. So my body's a little bit more fragile than it was. It takes me a little bit longer to recover. So I have to be more careful. I'm not doing so many new dives anymore. I'm kind of letting the young divers take the risks and learn the new dives. And I'm trying to just keep the bar set as high as possible and keep it there.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, let's talk about it since we already broached the subject, which is you're 39, I believe, correct? And you're turning 40 this summer.
Yeah.
So I imagine a sport like this, even being mid 30s, you're way past prime. So what have you done to stay relevant, to stay so top of your game for so many years at this age?
I would say that's true in diving, in 10-meter diving. 30 is past prime, but for 27 meters, it takes a long time to get to the highest level. You don't get to a world class level before at least 10 years of training, and so you're in your 20s when you're at the start of your career. And I kept improving. I would say around 33, 34, I was really at the top of my game, and physically in the best shape of my life. But 10-meter diving is a young man's sport. You need to be a lot quicker, a lot faster. So yeah, it's also a sport that's growing a lot. The 27 meters, it's only been around 10 years that it's been in the world championships, and you've seen a lot of progression in those 10 years. When I started, there was kind of there was room for improvement, or room to play with, that dives that nobody had done before. Now there's a lot less options. If you want to learn a new dive, you have to be really, really strong, really, really fast, and have a lot of guts. But back when I started, 2008, 2009, there was so much options to do because nobody was really coming from the competitive diving going straight into high diving. You would see people going to work in a circus or working in shows and then come into the high diving scene. So there was a real change in the sport over the last 10 years, and the levels just really shot.
I want to talk about how one comes up with a dive, how one practices, because A, there aren't many training facilities that can accommodate these kind of heights. Back in the day, there were no facilities. But even today, if you can get access to one of them, the impact it has on your body, you can only do so many 27-meter dives. So my understanding is you have to do a lot of practice dives off 10-meter platforms and then somehow like assemble these things together in real time when you're doing an actual cliff dive. Is that true? That sounds pretty daunting.
Yeah, usually the dives you can split them up into two parts. The really difficult dives, sometimes you have to split them up into three parts that you can either do from the 10-meter or from the 3-meter springboard. And yeah, you just have to go through the first part of the dive, hit the water, and do that a number of times, and then you change and go to the last part of the dive and go over that many times. And when I started, there was nowhere to practice, so you just had to prepare everything, and then you'd get invited to the competition. You'd have 1 day training, and then that would be your opportunity to learn the dive. And if it was good enough, then you'd put it into your list of dives for the next day.
But you can't practice a lot. So even when you try to assemble them, I imagine there's going to be some degree of a learning curve, trial and error. But with 90-foot dives, I mean, you land wrong and you could be paralyzed.
Yeah, learning dives on 10-meter and 3-meter, you'll see people using a bubble machine to soften the impact, and the impact is not a bad impact from 10-meter. You can shake it off sometimes, but yeah, we just have to be much more sure of ourselves when we're putting up a new dive on 27 meters. You need to be like as close to 100% sure that you know what you're doing before doing it. I mean, there's different level of divers, and there's people that make more mistakes than others. But if you want to have a long career, then you need to do enough of the groundwork to build up your confidence to pretty much know that when you do that dive off 27 meters, it's going to go well. It's easier
Mhm.
said than done, but you go through the dive in your head many times. Like I lost a lot of sleep when I was learning some of the bigger dives. I would just do all my training in the pool, but then I couldn't help but like always when I was trying to get to sleep, the dive would just be running over in my head, and I would just like imagine how it would feel. And yeah, it was kind of a pain when I had to wait to finally get a chance to throw the dive and prove to myself that I did know what I was doing. It was often a very long wait.
So you're playing it in your head over and over and over again
Yeah.
until you actually do it. So you've got to have very good aerial awareness.
Mm.
So you're
Yeah.
knowing where you're at all times as you're twisting and
Mm.
turning your way down. And if memory serves, I think that's what caused Simone Biles to pull out of the Tokyo Olympics.
Mm.
She had lost her self confidence, and once that happened, she got what they called, I don't know if this is a gymnastics term, but they call it the twisties.
Yeah.
When an athlete's mind and body sort of disconnect in the
Mm.
air, but at least, not that it couldn't be dangerous in gymnastics, but at least you're landing off a few feet on soft
Mm.
mats, whereas I mean you're jumping off again a 9-story building. So if you lose that spatial awareness mid dive, you're sort of screwed, aren't you, Gary?
Yeah. Yeah. It's well, it happened to me as similar kind of, well, it'd been happening to me over my career. From time to time, I would kind of miss the spot. Like when you're doing twists, in one direction, you would do one twist or two twists, but not one and a half twists. Like there would be a right place to come out. You twist with your arms up and tight, and after one twist, there would be a time to come out. And often I would miss that time, and I would know that I'd missed it, so I would just have to stay into the twist for another another twist, and then I could safely make my way out of the dive. But it would only happen like once a year or something like that when I was young. And I told myself it'll never happen on 27 meters because I'll be so concentrating. But yeah, in 2017, the last dive of the competition, I was winning and just needed to place seventh to win the title. And I did an extra twist and managed to make it down into the water safely. But it really messed with my mind for a long time afterwards. And I tried to solve the solution in training that winter, and it just got worse. I just every time I would try and find a new technique to for it not to happen, it would happen worse. And the things with twisting, you need to just let it happen on autopilot. The more you think about it, the worse it gets. And so it's very difficult to once you've drilled something into your head that you don't even need to think about anymore, like dives with twists that you can just do without thinking. Once they go wrong and you try and think about it, it's really a deep, dark hole that it's very difficult to get out of and to get your confidence back. It takes a lot of time going back to basics and building that confidence back up. I wasn't ready for the next season. 2018 was still too scared because I couldn't get back on the horse. I made a mistake and then had to wait the whole season until I could get back up onto the 27 meters. And so it took me two competitions to do. I did easier dives without any twists, and then started to think to myself, maybe I can do my old dives, and yeah, slowly built that confidence back up. Like before that, I kind of felt invincible up there. I felt like I was in control, and that just completely crumbled. That house crumbled, and I had to really work my way up. And it got better from 2018, 19, 20. I think I won 4 seasons in a row, but it still did come back to haunt me again. I started doing 10-meter diving with the French team and did 10-meter mixed synchro with a young girl in Rome in the European Championships. And because I was learning, doing a dives on 10 meters, they asked me to learn a new dive or a dive that I hadn't done for a long time ago with just one twist. And in the competition, I missed the spot, did an extra twist and landed really short on my face. Kind of had to climb out of the pool with my tail between my legs and shrug it off. But that really affected me again. I had to do 27-meter competition in the European Championships like 3-4 days afterwards, and I was really really scared again. Just you can't do anything when your confidence is rattled like that. It takes a lot of positive thinking and good performances to get your confidence back.
And that's all coming from within. That you rely on yourself to get that confidence back up.
Um, yeah, I mean, there's been people that have helped me. I spoke with a psychologist for a good few months, and a gymnastics coach that was helping me. But they can only just give you motivation, tell you that it'll be all right, that you just have to work your basics. I found like I was gripping hold of this problem, and I was searching for a solution I was convinced that I had to think about this problem in some way that I would find the solution, but in fact you have to forget about the problem somehow. Yeah, not easy to. I mean, I haven't got over this twisting problem. There's still many twisting dives that I can't do that I know are risky for me to do. So I've just learned to accept that as long as I can do the dives that I need to still perform at a high level, then have to get over it. I did love to be able to turn in every different direction, but yeah, that's the past.
Well, we talked about your being on the edge of 40 here and things have to change, but just go back to early in the competitions. I think it might have been your first year or certainly early in your career that you had assembled this dive I read about called a triple quad. It's a triple somersault with 4 twists. And at the time, no one had ever done a dive that complicated. So it seems like you were really pushing the envelope from the get go. And you think maybe just try to keep up with those that are at that competitive level, but it's like you're trying to outdo them from day one.
Yeah, I guess so. I do think it was more of a personal challenge. Like it wasn't like I had to do something to win. It was just once I started to learn the dives that other people were doing, I felt physically capable of doing more. And the dives that I'd done from 10 meter gave me the confidence to think about what my potential would be. And it was just hard not to do it. Like I finally found a sport where I could leave my mark, and I could create. I feel like I'm quite an artistic person. I love lots of creative activities, and high diving for me was a space that I could that create things that had never been done before, and push the boundaries of what was possible. And yeah, it was just a lot of fun for me.
And so when you talk about pushing the boundaries, when you talk about potential, I don't want to read too much into this, but it almost seems like you're competing with yourself more than you're competing with the rest of the field.
Yeah, I mean, it's very lonely up on that 27-meter platform. Like it's not the same as the Olympic diving where you can see your coaches, you can see your rivals. At the time when I started, we didn't have a diving coach. We were just there on our own. We were all very friendly. There was absolutely no rivalry between any of us, and we would help each other. We would look at each other's dives, film each other's dives, and everyone would just be happy if everyone got through the competition, and we could go celebrate with a beer afterwards. It has got more competitive nowadays, and there's people bringing their coaches, and yeah, in some ways I feel like it's a bit of a shame, but that's the way it goes, and I do want the sport to grow, and so that's just a part of it.
And you don't have a coach, is that right?
Yeah, there's been an article before, like no coach. That's not true. That's
You
never
do have
been
a
true.
coach.
Yeah, the thing is, when I started high diving, at that time I didn't really have a coach, because I left England. I started living in France,
Hmm.
and at that point I would train a little bit at the diving pool, and there would be a coach there, but he wouldn't really wasn't giving me too much input. And so at that point I was on my own when I was inventing all these dives and things like that. At that point I didn't have a coach. But around 2014, well, it was the first year that there was a world championships, and I was leading the competition. And the last dive, I needed sixes to win, and it was a dive that I'd got almost always got nines on, and I got five and a halves, and came second for the inaugural World Championships. And so that was kind of annoying. I felt like, okay, if I want to keep doing better, it's going to be good to have a coach. So at that point, I contacted the French team, and we started. Well, I started going a lot more often to the pool, and the coach at that point, Max Rochas, was making a plan for me, making a strength program and things like that. And so that was, yeah, the start of my relationship with the French guys.
Hmm. So you're in your zone, you're walking up 90 feet in the air, you walk on top of this plank. It's a competition. You've only got a few dives, everything is on the line.
You're making me nervous.
Well, it sounds like you're over the fear per se, but are you anxious? Are you nervous up there? Like what help me understand what's going through your mind, if anything's going through your mind.
Yeah, I have been nervous in those times. Now, in this part of my career, the last World Championships that just happened a couple of months ago, I really wasn't nervous at all. It's kind of strange,
Hmm.
because I mean I have been nervous in my career, and those moments when you first realize that you can get a gold medal at the World Championships, it's really scary. But I've gone through a lot of those moments now, and so now I can enjoy it, and yeah, I love those moments, but like they're not so nerve-wracking anymore. Like I practice, and I know how to keep my body under control, and stay calm, and I know that I'm at my best when I'm calm and like I'm excited, but I know what to do now to keep my body a nice even state. And yeah,
Hmm.
maybe it's a shame. I see other divers getting all hyped up and pumped up, and when they come out of the water and they throw their hands up and stuff like that. But that's just not how I operate. That's it's I mean, you can see it sometimes, but it's very under control. My highs and lows in high diving are always controlled. It's just the way I
It's
operate.
just the way you're wired. If you're okay to bring this up, there was a really close friend of yours, Gavin Brown. I don't know if it was early in your professional career or maybe before your career even started. Close friend of yours, a diving companion of yours. He died tragically for some hit and run accident. I take it must have been a pretty dark period for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were very very close from the start of when I started diving. 10 years old, 11 years old. He came, joined our club in Leeds, and yeah, we were just very very close. And eventually, I moved down from Leeds to Southampton, and we were calling each other on the phone almost every day. And then he ended up moving down to Southampton, starting diving again, and together that we would look at high diving videos and think to ourselves like maybe we could do this. Like
Mm.
if we did this, I would probably do that. And we'd talk about dives that we thought were possible. And so yeah, he's always been a part of my high diving journey. When he was killed, it was a terrible time of my life. I yeah, kind of went off the rails for a little bit, and yeah, didn't know how to deal with life. Just kind of felt on my own at that point. Like I did have other friends, but nobody as close as Gavin. So yeah, it was just a strange start to high diving. But what we went through and our ideas about high diving stuck with me. And there's certain things that he said, I'm going to do that. Like the running takeoff. Nobody would run and dive off 27 meters, but they do on 10 meters. And he said, I'm going to be the first person to run and jump off that platform. And that stuck with me. And so when I started getting into the competitions, getting my confidence up, that was kind of a thing that I did with him in mind, saying like, "This
Hmm.
is for you, Gavin." So yeah, he's still with me.
Yeah. Do you think his death fueled you in other ways?
Yeah, kind of. If it's possible, I mean, it may have kind of set me free in some way because I felt like I was on my own. And I mean, the fact that I moved to France, like maybe I wouldn't have moved to France if Gavin was still alive because we were very very close. But the fact that I'd moved away, it's kind of easy to focus and to get really down to business if you don't have as many connections, don't have as many friends asking if you want to go out for a beer and things like that. I was in my late 20s. I just got down to diving and just was really focused on what I wanted to do. So yeah, I don't know
Hmm.
if how his death changed me, or what things would have been like if he was still alive. We'll never know.
Yeah. Yeah. Outside of the dives you're doing, the practice dives and the 10 meters, what kind of training program are you doing? Do you have strict eating regimens? Are there strict gym workouts or aerobic workouts? Or what are you doing to get your body and frankly, your mind as well in the condition it needs to compete at that level?
Yeah, I'm lucky to have a fast metabolism, so I've never really had to watch too much about what I eat. It's more the opposite. I have to make sure I'm getting enough protein, make sure I'm eating enough, because yeah, I burn calories very fast. So that's not too difficult to take care of. The weights program, it's somewhere between 2 and 3 like heavy weights sessions per week, and then lots of diving sessions. Often there's an hour before we get in the water where we'll be doing somersaults onto crash mats, we'll be doing a lot of trampoline work. If there's a coach that does rigging, then on a trampoline, there's a system where you can put a belt around you, and a coach can pull on these ropes that are attached to you, so you can do figures from the trampoline. You can do your tricks and not land back on the trampoline because your coach will hold you up. So that's if you want to learn a new dive, you can repeat it in the rig before going up to 10 meter. So things like this, a lot of acrobatics, rolling around in all directions, and then we get in the pool.
It's a tremendous amount of work, though. I mean, this is a full-time endeavor.
Yeah, I'm training a little bit more every year. Back when I was 25, 26, I was in good shape because I was just leaving like the diving competitions, but then I left just solely for high diving, and I would be in shape for the summer season. And then when the last competition was done, I would take time off. I'd take 2, 3 months off, have Christmas, and then after Christmas, think, okay, yeah, maybe I should get back to the pool and start doing some weights again, stuff like that. But as years went on in my 30s, I realized, yeah, I can't take too much time off now. And now coming up to being 40, even if I take a week off, it takes me maybe 2, 3 weeks to get back to where I left off. So now my goal is the Olympic Games, and yeah, I've had my last week off. Now it's just all gung ho until this summer.
Wait, so it is an Olympic sport?
10 meter diving is an
Okay.
Olympic sport, and now with the French team. France is the host nation of this Olympics, so
Mhm.
the host nation has a free spot in the 10 meter synchro event, or all the synchro events. And at the moment, me and my partner are the only divers in France doing 10 meter. So we're on very good track. It hasn't been official yet, but yeah, we're on good track to be performing at the Olympics.
Now, Gary, I think on the 10 meter you got to land head first.
Yeah.
you, you've got some work to do. You've won now, I think, 10 of these Red Bull World Series championships. So I can understand the drive to get to it the first time around, to
Mm,
get to the first victory in the first World Series, and maybe the second one to show that you can repeat. Once you have a whole number of these,
mm.
what is it that keeps you motivated? What keeps you driving to excellence?
I mean, I want to say I love the sport, and it was the chance to do some crazy things, but it was my job as well. I mean, to me, it felt like the best job in the world. I would go away. There would be like 10 trips in the year where I'd go away for 5 days, and so I was earning a living from 50 days work in the year. It was I couldn't think of a better job. I loved what I was doing. It was scary. It was exciting,
Hmm.
and often I came home with a trophy. So it was difficult not to think of anything else. Obviously, the victories started to mean a little bit less and less along the journey. But then at the same time, as the other divers got older, or the other divers got more difficult dives, every year the challenge was more and more difficult. And so the last few victories that I had were always more enjoyable than the last ones because I wasn't the favorite anymore. So yeah, it still excited me and still excites me to this day. But thankfully, I have this other challenge in front of me, that's the Olympic Games. That's really getting me out of bed early to work hard, because it's yeah, it's my career's turned upside down again, and it's yeah, there's a lot to learn. And I feel lucky to have this opportunity to compete at the Olympics. That I thought it was kind of a put on the back shelf and never thought it would happen.
Yeah, that's a fantastic honor. There was some interview I read where you were asked your greatest fear, and you said your greatest fear was losing your motivation to learn new things, which I thought was really interesting. And you talked about the juggling, and you mentioned that you play piano and the
Mm,
Rubik's Cube, and even just doing the diving. It's always thinking about new dives and how you can
mm,
push the envelope. So that seems to be a big thing, just the curiosity to keep trying new things.
Yeah, yeah. I don't like to be bored, and luckily, there's a lot of things that interest me. And when I'm completely interested in what I'm doing, when I'm completely lost in whatever I'm doing, whether it be piano or Rubik's Cube or juggling, there's such a joy in that when I'm completely closed off to the rest of the world and there's just my brain working with my body to do something. And I love the disconnect that there is when you, for example, you're playing the piano and you can kind of step back and realize that your hands are moving and your body knows what it's doing, but your brain can kind of step back and just be like, yeah, look at me, look what
Hmm.
I'm doing. I find that fascinating that there's kind of two parts to your brain where you can step back and just let things happen. The scientists have called it flow, I think, where you switch off and you just let your body do the movements. Your muscle memory is so ingrained that you don't need to think about what you're doing anymore. And I love that feeling.
Hmm. I just interviewed someone recently in the show. George Mumford is his name. Think of him as the spiritual coach guru, if you will. He advised the Chicago Bulls. He was the spiritual coach for Michael Jordan, for Kobe Bryant, for a number
Yeah,
of these big time players. And there was something around the fact of just be. Don't think, just be. Just let it flow. And the more you think, the worse it gets. You get in your own way. So it seems to be a
yeah,
consistent theme with that.
absolutely. And that's why I think the young divers are better than older divers because when you get older, you think a lot more. Like
Hmm.
your brain is a lot clearer when you're young, and you can just go to a task and do it without questioning yourself. And when you get older, you just constantly like assessing the risk, like what could go wrong.
Right.
It's a lot more difficult to like switch off and just do.
Our brains are not fully formed when we're at that age.
Yeah.
That's why. There seemed to be an interesting theme about you, and you sort of alluded to it, which is, and this is from other divers and maybe former coaches and all this, which is that there's this interesting duality in you. You're this hyper competitive diver, a very hyper competitive athlete, period, but also very laid back. And you don't often see those two qualities in the same person. I just
Yeah.
thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I don't know where that comes from. I'm the youngest of three children. I have two older sisters, and I think there was some kind of group like they would stick together, and I would always be like trying to impress them or trying to do like be part of the group. And so I was always kind of a show off when I was younger, and always trying to do things really well to impress my sisters, I think.
Hmm.
So that I think that may be where the competitiveness comes from, and being laid back. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think that's just in your bones or in your genes. Yeah, don't think about having to be laid back. I just am.
You just start, yeah, but you understand, right? Usually the wiring that makes someone want to compete at those levels and be the best in the world at something,
Hmm.
that wiring makes them not so laid back. I mean, I don't know if you ever
Yeah,
saw the Michael Jordan documentary, but
yeah,
there was no laid backness about the guy off the court. He
mm,
was as competitive off the court as he was on the court. That's just the way he's wired. I mean, by the way, no judgment here. It's just the way it
mm.
is. So it's just interesting to see that.
Yeah. I did always love playing around and pushing other divers to do stuff, and other divers were pushing me, but like at that time, I wasn't the best. Like I was just trying to catch up. I was just trying to do as good as my friends were doing. I was never getting a big head when I was young or anything like that. It took me a lot of time to get to a high level. And yeah, I don't know. I just learned not to be a bad loser, I guess. Like losing wasn't that big of a deal. Like I think my sister had got into a bit of a tantrum when she used to lose, and so maybe I learned from her, like try not to try to lose gracefully. But yeah, just always loved competing, and I found that I needed that. I needed the competition to get the best out of me. And still to this day, if there's ever a bet that's going on, or somebody pushes me to do a dive under pressure, it's always going to be better than if there's no pressure.
Hmm. So I'm going to put you on the spot. You are considered the greatest cliff diver of all time. And so the question here is, why is that the case? What would you suspect you're doing that others aren't doing?
I mean, I think I got into the sport at a very good time. There was definitely a question of timing because I had the opportunities. If I'd have started 10 years earlier, I definitely wouldn't have made as big a name for myself because there wasn't that circuit, the Red Bull circuit, to really do what I did. So the timing was perfect, and just my background in diving and my curiosity in diving, for me, diving wasn't ever about like be the best, beat the others. It was like, wow, what can I do? Like this, the diving pool for me was like a playground. Like there's so much to do. I wanna learn all of it. And so I had such a great background for high diving. I had so many options. When I got to 27 meters, I had many options to learn different dives because I'd worked on all the different directions from 10 meter and from lower. I'd done every dive in every direction almost. So just the fact that curiosity had led me to learn so many different dives gave me those options to do dives that had never been done before. So
Hmm.
and just I love it. I don't know many other divers that love diving as much as I do. So yeah, that helps.
No, that's great because I look back at how you switched from swimming to diving.
Mm,
And I know the reason at the time was, oh, that looks like they're having more fun. It's a little more
mm,
chill. But I would suspect, even had you been the best there was in swimming,
mm,
swimming, I don't think, I hope I don't get a bunch of hate email from this, but I don't think swimming allows the kind of creativity and
mm.
expression that diving does. And it seems that a
Yeah,
lot of the allure is trying new things and coming up
mm,
with new moves and things that have never been done before. Swimming is all about perfect a particular stroke,
yeah,
get as much power and efficiency as you can, and then do it over and over and over and
mm,
over again. Don't get creative, you know.
yeah,
Don't stray far at all. So somehow serendipitously, you ended up in something that allowed you to express a lot of this creativity.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I have a lot of competitiveness, but I don't think I have enough to go for something that yeah didn't interest me as much as diving.
Gary, I love to wrap with this question. It's the same one
Mm,
every interview I do. The podcast is called The Art of Excellence. Excellence is a word I like guests to try to define. When you think of the word, what comes to mind?
For me, it's just the passion that you need to get there. I don't think anyone really excels in anything unless they have found that passion for it. I mean, it's something I strive for in kind of in everything that I do. I don't like doing anything halfway, and that's what I take pleasure from is whatever I'm doing, I'll try and concentrate and put my whole mind into it, not just doing things distractedly. And I can, if I pay attention, then I can get a lot of joy out of doing very simple things. The way I stay happy is just whatever I'm doing to do it in the best way possible.
I'll take it. There's no right answer. That's the
Yeah,
beauty of it. I love interviewing people like you that are just top in the world because it's a lot of lessons I learn. Hopefully others will too. But thank you for doing this. I loved it. I really did, Gary. So I really appreciate your taking the time.
no, I learn a lot from myself. Like once you get into these deep conversations, I learn about myself doing things like this. So thank you. Nice speaking with you.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, here's my ask of you. First, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the show. You can find it on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Second, tell a friend. Better yet, share it with all your friends and contacts on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Honestly, wherever you hang out online is fine with me. Please leave me a review if you could on iTunes or Spotify or both. The reviews really do help. And finally, try to find one takeaway from this episode that you can apply to your own life. Commit to trying something, anything. As the saying goes, no harm in trying. I leave you with this one question. How do you define the word excellence?